being a good leader, you have to be able to listen as well as instruct. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I'm 5'2" and 108 pounds. I'm the shortest guy in the platoon.
I don't care if somebody served a year or if they served 30 years. If they did it and they did it honorably, that's all I care about. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Called2Serve podcast. I am here with Staff Sergeant Chris Lackey. Staff Sergeant Chris Lackey served 16 years in the Army between two different enlistments. He served in the medical industry, but also towards the end of his career, he served as a military policeman. So he is joining us all the way down from the Hinesville, Savannah area. So he drove 5 hours or so just to get here. So we definitely appreciate you coming through, Staff Sergeant Lackey. Can I call you Chris?
Yeah, go ahead. And before we begin, I would just like to say thank you for the invite. And it's a big change for me being a small town guy, you know, getting to come back to his second home and, you know, helping people out. It's just, I love helping people. That's just what it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in a previous episode, we actually had one of your good friends who was also a mentor of mine. He was a leader of mine in the Army, Sergeant First Class James Davis.
Okay.
And he actually referred you to come onto the show. So if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, and I'd like to really just talk about, you know, your relationship with Sergeant First Class retired James Davis.
Where do I begin with the relationship between he and I? It would have to go back to 2009 when I was in transition from my previous unit in Korea to my what would end up being my last unit in the military there at Fort Stewart. I was in the process, you know, I was dealing with some personal issues, and he and I just bumped into each other one day, and we just started talking, and he said, you kind of got a worried look on your face. What's going on? So I told him about what's going on, and he found out I was a new NCO in the unit. And he said, hey, man, I'm going to show you what's going on. I'm going to take you under my wing, and we're just going to go from there, and we're going to get you straightened out. I'm like, all right, cool. So as the days and stuff go by, you know, and I'm getting my footing in the unit, he basically was there when I needed him, because when I got there at Fort Stewart, I was in a bad way, emotionally and mentally. And he was just there. He listened to my problems. He understood what was going on. And, you know, he and I, from then on, we, for lack of a better term, we became inseparable, you know.
Okay.
And then, you know, he bestowed the nickname on me of Goose. And he, you know, I said, why you call me Goose? He said, because you look like the guy from Top Gun, the guy. And from then on, wherever you saw him, you were sure to see me somewhere in the close vicinity. I mean, a guy, he has really become sort of my go-to friend. You know, I have a lot of friends, but they came and they went, and so, but he's the one guy that has always been there. And when I was medically separated in 2011, he and I stayed in touch the whole time I was out, and and it was funny because he had come to Arkansas, where I'm from, and he was going to a class there at Camp Robinson in Little Rock, and he sends me a text. He says, "Hey man, I'm in this class. I'm going to be here for a couple of weeks. I can't go anywhere right now, but when I graduate from the class, I'm going to come up here, come up there to Fort Smith where you're at, and we're going to hang out. We're going to have some fun." And so, he did his thing. He went through the class, and, sure enough, on that Sunday about, I would probably say about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he shows up on my doorstep. I'm like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Hey, man, I told you I was going to be here, and I'm here for it." I'm like, "Cool." And he got to meet my parents, and I was taking care of them. And my mom said, out of all of the friends that I had over the course of my entire adulthood, he's the one that I would trust you with if you ever decided to go back to Fort Stewart and go down there and live. And
wow.
I really don't think I would be here if he hadn't come along. And I mean, it was not always what he said, it was by his actions. And he said, "I'm not going to leave your side, man. You're too valuable a friend." And that's kind of where we are today.
Man, that's powerful. I mean, a lot of people don't really have, in my opinion, a lot of people don't really have the opportunity to have a relationship like that where they can be friends with someone for, I think you said 15 years, yeah?
Yeah.
That, and someone who's consistently in their lives. So I appreciate you sharing that, Chris. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your story?
Well, let's see. Where do I begin? I'm a child of the very end of the 1960s. People look at me and I tell them how old I am. They just get these looks in their eyes like, there is no way. There is no way that you're 55 years old. I'm like, yeah. And I come from a family of 5 kids. And, we're a big family. When my dad was growing up, within a 5-block area of where he was living at, there was altogether 18 to 20 cousins and nephews and, brothers and sisters. And I'm like, it's a big family. I love big families. I think family is really one of the most important jobs that you could be. As not only as a son, son to the father, and now the tables have kind of turned, and now I'm the father. I have two children. Both of them are adults, and surprise, surprise, a few years ago, in 2018, I became a grandfather. I'm a grandpa.
Congratulations.
I've got a 7-year-old granddaughter who thinks she knows everything, and she's already one of the top kids in her class. She'll be a first grader come August, and I'm just, every time I see her, I am blown away by how much she knows. I mean, she is, just like her mama calls her, she is a little diva. She's just like, I do what I want, when I want, where I want, how I want. I'm like, no, you won't. You gonna listen to your mama and you gonna listen to me.
There you go.
I think out of everything, I enjoy being a grandpa the most because I get to share what, my grandparents and my parents taught me and what I've pass down to my kids. And, with her being my only grandchild, I am just, being a parent is one thing, but when you become a grandparent, it's a life changer. It will change your life completely, And I tell that to all of these young kids that I see these days. I said, if you're gonna raise a family, do it the right way. Teach them how to, teach them the manners. Yes sir, no sir. Help out, And when you get old enough, you'll understand the lessons that are being taught to you. That way you can pass it down to the next generation. And I think with, today's society, I don't think we see that very much. We see it, but not to the point to where it's a positive impact that you want to have, passing your information down to your children so they can pass it down to their children. And I wish more people would realize that.
Speaking of family, right? Let's kind of move into your military service. So,
okay,
what made you decide to go into the military, and what was like the family dynamic when you decided? Did your family support?
Oh, absolutely. They, my dad and my grandfather and his grandfather, we traced our military history all the way back to the Civil War.
Wow.
And when I found out about all this, I was just like, Dad, how come you never told me any of this? But they knew. My mom knew. My dad knew. He said, son, when you go, I want you to strive to be better than I am. And take what you learn and you pass it on to these younger people. And it's funny. When I graduated high school in 1987, I was 5'2" and I weighed 108 pounds. I was the shortest white guy in my school, but I knew the military is where I wanted to go. And January of 87, I signed my delayed entry program. And then once I graduated high school, I went to I went to Little Rock to go to the entry processing station, the MEPS. And then from there, I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for my basic training. But when I got there, I had to spend a month in fitness training because I couldn't do the basic requirements to go to basic training. So I'm there 1 month, getting strong, getting physically fit to go to basic training. And then it was funny, the day I finally got to basic training, all of the drill sergeants were standing around. They looked at me and they just shook their head. And I'm thinking to myself, why are they shaking their head? And then I remembered, oh yeah, I'm 5'2" and 108 pounds. I'm the shortest guy in the platoon. So with that, and with the basic training being 8 weeks at the time, the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, they had to take me to the Class A shop for my uniforms on 3 different occasions because I had hit my growth spurt right about then. And the drill sergeants they were getting upset because they were like, this is the 3rd time we had to take you to the uniform shop. And I'm like, I can't help it. In that 12 weeks that I was at Fort Jackson, the last 4 were, essentially they were the roughest 4 weeks for me physically, because my growth spurt had hit, and in a matter of 3 weeks, I ended up growing like 5.5 inches.
Whoa!
It was scary. It was a very scary feeling. I ended up graduating from basic training a lot bigger, a lot stronger than I came in, and then I found out why. They had taken all of the skinny and short people, and they put them on a regulated calorie diet. They told me I was on a 12,000 calorie a day diet. I ate 6 times whether I wanted to or not. It was, and it didn't stop there. When I graduated from Fort Jackson, and then I went from Fort Jackson down to what is now the Joint Base in San Antonio for my lab school. And at the start of school, I was 5'8.5". By the end of school, in April of '88, I was 6'1". So I grew another 4.5 inches. And I'm just like, okay, am I done? So the military is, for me, my first enlistment was a game changer. The second one, it was just, the second one was more learning how to be a leader. And I think I turned out to be a pretty good one.
What does being a good leader mean to you?
Being a good leader is, to me, is not only being able to give instruction, but as a leader, you have to be instructed before you can instruct. And to me, if you can take what you have learned and you can mold a new soldier and you give him all the tools that he needs to be successful, physically as well as mentally, and emotionally, you would want to throw that in there. But I think being a good leader, you have to be able to listen as well as instruct. If you're not able to listen very well, then you're not going to be a good leader.
I definitely resonate with that, because you need to be able to listen to understand, not just to respond. And someone said something to me, said, hey, in order to be a good leader, you have to know what it's like to follow.
Yes. But
to remain a good leader, you need to remember what it's like to follow.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
One of my mentors told me, and it's because of what you just said, is taking pretty much information, taking instruction, and then passing it along. He told me, when you receive information, you can do two things with it. You can be a receiver of information, where you just take that information and use it for yourself, or you can be a reproducer of information. You can take that information and instill it in others, right? And so I associate that a lot with being a good leader, is taking the knowledge that and disseminating it to where it can become applied knowledge for someone else.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Fort Jackson.
Yeah.
Right. And this is when you went into medical logistics, or what were you doing?
I was, after my basic training at Fort Jackson, I went down to Fort Sam Houston to learn how to become a medical laboratory specialist.
Okay.
And it was a fun course. I got there in December, but the class didn't start until January. So I had to. They had to put me on a casual platoon status, which was basically doing details during the daytime, and then once the class started, you get in there and you try to learn as best you can, and the more you can, more you learn, and the better it sticks in your head, the better you are able to execute what they have instructed you to do. And there were a lot of interesting aspects of that schooling. A few of them are, kind of embarrassing, but but the overall school, it's a year-long school now. I tried to go back to it when I got stationed at Fort Sill, and I was getting ready for reenlistment, and I talked to the reenlistment NCO, and he said, no, I was a specialist promotable at the time. I hadn't got my stripes pinned on yet. And he said, in order for you to go back to medical lab school, you have to be a sergeant. You have to be a E5 pay grade. And I said, well, am I not being promoted here soon? He said, yes, you are, but the classes are from January to January. And, at the time that I wanted to reenlist, I was already in between. I was right there about midway between start date and end date. So I was like, okay, so what now? And about that time, that was when the military police job came open, and that my military police career was probably one of the more favorite times in my career.
What's that?
Well, I got it was just about when I got to be a military policeman. It was about serving and protecting. Being a positive role model for the community that I was serving, which when I was an MP was the Fort Stewart, Georgia community. And it was just, going out and, trying to help people solve their problems. And that's, I like to think of myself, as a problem solver. Not all the time, because as much as we would like to, we can't solve everybody's problem for them at the same time. If we did, the world would be a lot better place. But being a medical laboratory technician was fun. It's a very challenging MOS, because what you're actually doing as a medical lab technician, you are dealing with you're not just dealing with the physical aspects of the job, but you are dealing with actual body fluids. You're dealing with the blood. You're dealing with all their products. You're dealing with basically you're dealing with people's poop.
Yeah.
And
stool samples, yeah.
Stool samples, stuff like that, it got to the point where I was getting burned out in the lab, and at the time, there was a sergeant that was working over at the blood bank center on post, and he wanted to come to the hospital and work in the hospital, and I wanted to go, and the blood bank center sounded like a really interesting place to work, and it ended up being a very stressful but rewarding place to work. And I had a very good mentor while I was there. Her name was Staff Sergeant Miller. And she saw that I was willing to learn, and she, along with the other soldiers that had been there longer, they all took me under their wing, and they showed me what was going on, and that was the start of me finding out what I needed to do as a leader. And if I could go back, I would definitely go back, and I would do everything over again. I would kind of tweak a couple of things, but other than that, I mean, you can't really determine what's going to happen.
Are there any regrets that you have as far as joining the military? Like, has it ever hindered anything in your life?
Regret? I have, I have a couple of them. I wish, that I would have put more into the organizational part of being a soldier, a leader, an NCO. And I say that because at times during my military career, I looked at myself and I was, I felt kind of scatterbrained. Like I was catching all this information at once, and I wasn't quite really sure how to put it together the best way so I could present myself as somebody who knew exactly what was going on. And I figured it out finally when I became a military policeman, and that was in 2008. And I knew I had gone through the school at Fort Leonard Wood, and I was being stationed over in Korea. And when I got there, it was a reality check for me because, boom, here I am. I'm an NCO. It's time to lead. And not only that, be an effective leader.
Yeah, that's important, being an effective leader. So Korea, did you ever make it to Korea?
Yes. Korea for me was a very interesting year-long tour. I got there into the replacement detachment on Labor Day weekend in 2008. So I had to stay there an extra week to in process. And the first thing that hit me when I stepped off that plane in Seoul, was it was the culture. And I was interested, and it interested me a lot. And then, getting in there and doing my in processing and stuff like that, I learned more about the culture of the South Korean people. And I only wish that I would have had more time to sightsee, because being an NCO, when I got to the battalion and they said, you're going to Camp Walker and you are replacing the NCO who was one of the ones leading the details, for lack of a better term. You put all you guys out there on the road. You're a patrol supervisor. You got to lead them, and you got to make sure they're doing the right things. When I got there, I was the only one in my platoon that was stationed there at Camp Walker. And when I asked the first sergeant, why am I the only one here at Walker from the second platoon? And he said, Sergeant, you're here because we need somebody here from second to actually, we need somebody to work with the Korean contingent of military police here on Camp Walker. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And first platoon, they were out at Camp Carroll in Wagwan, which is like a 30, 45-minute drive away from Camp Walker. And Camp Henry is like maybe a couple miles down the road. We were there in Daegu, and driving around Daegu, I compare it to it's almost like New York City. And a lot of roads, a lot of people. I'm like, oh my goodness, culture shock. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my year over there. I wished I would have been able to enjoy it more and do a little more sightseeing, but being NCO, duty comes first.
100%. Well, we definitely thank you for all of your years of service. Let's talk about a little bit of what you got going on now. I know we spoke briefly, and I know you kind of endeavored on an entrepreneurship journey, doing a bunch of different things.
Absolutely. One of the things I like doing, and I've gotten to the point to where it's almost become like second nature to me. I do a T-shirt art, and not only that, I do T-shirts, I do jeans, I do shoes, like the ones I have on right now. These I did a couple of days ago, and they are the colors on the shoes are Dallas Cowboy inspired.
Okay.
I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan.
Cowboys.
I may catch stuff like that from some of my friends who are being a Georgia guy. Mm-hmm. I have Atlanta Falcon fans. I have Packer fans. I have Georgia Bulldog fans. Those guys and girls, they get on me consistently. And why? It's because I still haven't put all my hats up on the wall yet, but I am a huge Arkansas Razorback fan. Have been, always will be. Now, the guy that was on a previous episode that you had, Sergeant Davis, he is a huge Miami Hurricane fan, and he said, "Bro, I'm gonna convert you. You're gonna get rid of all those Razorback hats, and you're gonna start wearing some Hurricane gear. If I got anything to say about it." He said that, and he said, he's a Florida Panther, a hockey fan. I'm like, no, I'm a Dallas Stars fan. Always have been, always will be. You're not going to get that out of me.
So it's not going too well for him right now.
No,
huh? Yeah,
not at all.
Not at all.
I mean, spending time hanging out with him, I've learned so much. I learned so much from him in the time that we were, battle buddies there at Fort Stewart. I mean, who cannot help but be drawn to somebody like that? I mean, he's
great guy.
He's goal oriented. He's driven. I wouldn't say quite toward the level of obsessive. No. I would say passionate. he's very passionate about the family, about his Florida Panthers, about his Miami Hurricanes, and I respect that, because one of my biggest things is loyalty. You have to be loyal, and you have to be committed to it. Whether it's working on woodworking, working on your car, sitting down on the Saturdays and watching football and throwing foam bricks at the TV and stuff like that. You got to be a passionate fan.
Yeah.
And, you have to be loyal. If you choose a team, stay with that team. I've been a Dallas Cowboys fan for a long time, even when they were 1-15 in 1989, and they won that one game with a replacement running back. I'm a very passionate person. I'm a very loyal person. If a person is showing me loyalty by sticking with me, if I'm, at the bottom, or if I'm grabbing for that brass ring and, reaching the top, being on top, that's a great feeling. When you set out to accomplish something and you finally make your goals and you hit your goals and you get that adrenaline rush, like, yes, I did this. Now it's on to the next one. That's the kind of people I like being around.
Yeah. That's good, man. Because they say that you're a product of the top 5 people you spend your time with. So if you hang around people who are lazy, more than likely you're lazy.
Right.
If you hang around people who are very driven and goal oriented, more than likely you're probably very driven and goal oriented. So I'm a firm believer in that philosophy.
Okay.
And for me, I'm always working on myself to better myself. And I knew before I became an entrepreneur, I knew that I needed to get around different types of people.
Right.
And that what that does is that widens your horizons. It widens your mindset. You start to think a different way. You start to move differently, and that gives you different results. So I definitely I see where you're going with that. And loyalty is key. Loyalty to others, but loyalty to yourself and loyalty to your dreams, right? Yeah. That's important to see it through and to finish what you start. So yeah, I like that. Chris, man, that's a great point.
One of the other things I like is a person who is respectful, not only to themselves, but to everyone around him. When people see that, and it's like, hey, this guy knows, he, we may not always have the same views on things. And you got to respect somebody that will stand up for his own values. And I just keep going back to Sergeant Davis. He's a very driven person. He's a very respectful person, and he is somebody that if he sees that you are not living up to your potential, he will take you aside, and if he needs to put a boot in your backside, he will do it. And I've had him do that to me on a couple of occasions. And not to say that I didn't need it, but of course I do at times. I see, our relationship, I see him more as the straight-faced, front guy, I am that guy, And me, I see it, especially around him. He and I are, well, I would almost liken it to some of the great comedic duos of the past, like Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy. I think that's why we mesh so well together, because when I'm by myself, I'm very quiet, I'm very laid back, I'm very reserved. But you get me in a crowd, and it's throw everything to the wall, and
let's go.
Let's get after it.
Yeah, man. So I really appreciate you sharing your perspective. It's obvious that Sergeant First Class Davis means a lot to you. He means a lot to me, and I'm glad that you have had the opportunity of being his friend over these years. I'm glad that we had the opportunity for you to come down and really just share a little bit of your story. I'm sure we'll definitely talk more. You said something
I look forward to it. I definitely.
Yeah, I know you spoke about values, and that's super important. And we have something that we want to give to you that kind of speaks on our values. It's the reason that we do what we do. It's the reason that this podcast exists. So what I have for you is a custom made challenge coin.
Very nice.
Called2Serve podcast. And on the back, it talks about our values, and that's serving those who serve others.
I like that. I appreciate that very much.
For me, I don't care if somebody served a year or if they served 30 years. If they did it and they did it honorably, that's all I care about, because the reality is that not everybody is man enough or woman enough to sign their X on that line. Or
I agree.
Sign their name by the X on that line, right? So I believe everybody deserves a chance to share their story.
I was crazy enough to sign my name on that line twice.
Did it twice. Hey, you know what, man? Me too. I did it good. Yeah, man. Couple extensions.
If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing, except maybe not get involved with certain people that they shall remain nameless on here.
Yeah,
but they were pretty close to me, but that's another story for another time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Staff Sergeant Lackey, thank you so much, man, for coming through.
I appreciate it. I like I said, this is a this is a first for me, actually. I've been on TV when I was stationed out at Fort Hood, and that was just on a Saturday night. They were interviewing people, but I have never actually fully got to discuss my career and the things that have come about because of my career. So I definitely want to take this time to thank you, and I look forward to more conversations with you in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing your story. Until next time, my friend.
Until next time.